What is up, guys? Today, this is gonna be my first ever public YouTube video. It's 2316, and as you can see from the title, today we're talking about how to live and to let go. So, I think this is a very important skill in our lifetime that to live and to let go means to continue living and means to continue living for ourselves, for others, for the betterment of the world, basically, right? And I think a lot of us, oftentimes in our lives, when we have something that we didn't want to happen, let's put it simply, let's say a breakup, right? We often ruminate on that. We often think and overthink about it. We would sit in our rooms, we would be in our minds, even when people are talking to us. Sometimes we go off track and we sort of think and think and think. I think we all do that. We can relate. And I've seen this podcast in I think with Chris Williamson. I forgot the guest star, but he's a psychologist. He explained that rumination, that overthinking pattern is a survival pattern that we have, and we use it for back in the old age, back in the Stone Age and the Ancient Age, hunting and gathering, we use it to preserve ourselves. We have to sort of think of an outcome from a limited amount of knowledge. So let's say you're gonna hunt in the woods, and you reminisce about, or you sort of reminisce about your past experience in the woods. Oh, there's tigers and everything. So you sort of create this sort of imaginary path to a solution. And well, it's a good tool, right? It's a good tool to preserve ourselves, to essentially shield ourselves from uh, very risky situations. We're very risk averse in a sense. We don't like risks, so we put out that outcome. And oftentimes now in the modern age, I think even pop culture, or I would say social media, if you've seen a lot of social media, I think reflecting upon the posts, the reels, you see a lot of, I would say, in Indonesia, it's called galau, or sadness. Those sort of like emo, very sort of sad boy. That's the word. It's sad boy sort of post. About relationships, and sometimes they put even relatable captions like only overthinkers can read this, and this is like abbreviations of like letters, and it's like it spells like I love you, but I don't know how to say it to you because I don't know if you love me back or something like that. I even remember it so often how much it comes up, right? But it's unique. It's unique. You have to admit. But yeah, think that tool sticks with us until the modern age now. And oftentimes, the psychologists often explain it as well, that it's sort of, how I catch it, it sort of hijacks our sort of solution, right? It's trying sort of to help us to find a solution, but it's sort of messing it up. It's not hijacking, I would say, but it's out of control sometimes. It's very wild in a sense that it creates, it likes solution, because we as humans, we like certainty, we like not risking things, we like to survive. So it's very interesting that the psychologist said that we love solutions so much that we would think of an imaginary solution that's even worse than the actual thing, or something like that, like worse than the actual thing, or maybe even better, but worse than the actual thing. Then we then we are with not knowingness. So we often like and want imaginary solution that doesn't and never is going to happen, rather than the phrase of I don't know what happened, I don't know what's the future. You know, I don't know. I don't know. It's oftentimes um, we prefer that. We prefer the latter. The latter. We prefer solutions more than we prefer ambiguity. I would say, just simply put it, right? We prefer solutions, even if they're not real, even if they're a bad outcome, than we do with uncertainty. And I think that, yeah, I think we all can relate to that. But yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting because oftentimes we think about, oh, what should have happened, and what happened, this happened. And I think for me personally, the solution that sort of worked and hopefully continue to work is change of perspective, in a sense that sometimes when we overthink, when we're in that sort of, go back to that lodge attached to the animal with the rope, we overthink, sort of, go around in circles in this sort of horse armor. If you've seen a horse armor, it's usually covering the eyes so that the horse doesn't panic by seeing the left and right, so you just see straight. That's what we have when we overthink. We often don't see the full perspective on things. And I think what works for me is, we you have we and I, everyone, I think, well, up to but sorry, I what works for me is, I have to change the perspective of how I see things, right? For example, okay, let's say a breakup, right? And okay, what's wow, I even myself, I'm dumbfounded. I'm speechless. But it's sort of like, okay, what did you lose today? Uh, what happened, right? And you have to sort of also see it from the, oh, you lose something, maybe you break up with someone, but you also have your time back, right? We also have to know about what we gain from that. Okay, I gain this, I gain that. Well, for example, for me personally, I would say that, you know, I think it's applicable to everybody, that you don't have to think about another person logically, right? Well, you don't have to think about another entity again. Yeah, you can think about yourself. You can think about yourself. And yeah, that's basically it. Hold on, I'm a pause right now. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit dumbfounded from myself. But yeah, we oftentimes we think about the losses that we have when we have breakups, the memories and everything. But we also have to think about the things we gain, the other side of the coin, because there's always two sides of the coin, whether we like it or not, right? you know in There's always a silver lining at the clouds. So that that change of perspective, really, it takes you back. It's like, oh, okay, so maybe it's not that bad, because it is, right? Life keeps moving on, to be honest with you. And aside from changing your perspective, we have to admit defeat. I think it's a I don't know if about you guys, but I think from some of us, it's hard to admit that, oh yeah, I'm never gonna get that back. Like, never. Maybe someone punched you, someone did you wrong, and you're like, oh, I want to punch him back, but you can't, right? Sometimes, maybe, that can visualize what I'm saying, is that sometimes we have to admit defeat. The fact that we lost something, that's the fact that we can't get back on something, or we can get back to something. And that's fine, right? It hurts. I think it hurts. But when you let in that defeat, when you let in the fact that, okay, yeah, this sucks, when you let in, it's then gets you the power to just let go. When that animal tries to break out of that sort of chain, it hurts. It admits, okay, I'm tied to this rope and to this stick, and you try to break out of it, and it's just bam. It's like, oh, okay, it hurts, but once you let go, once you accept defeat and sort of change that perspective, you're just like, oh, it's so freeing, right? It's so freeing. And one other thing that I would like to, I think, tell you guys, it's about applying what happened now to the things that you've conquered before. So let's say maybe you've public speak before, or maybe you've done a more heartbreaking breakup before, right? Like, or maybe you've conquered bigger dragons. And when you think about it, it's like when you've conquered, like, in a video game, when you've conquered the final boss, or like a big huge hard boss, it's like, what else is there in that game, right? And I'm not saying this to be sort of smug, or like, oh, I'm so good, but in a sense, we often lose perspective when we're sad. We often lose perspective when everything's sort of emotionally charged. But we have to look back, and it's like, well, okay, I solved that problem. I solved this problem. I solved that problem before. Really, what is this to it, right? Like, maybe it's bigger now, right? Maybe it's a bigger problem than before. And to that extent, I could say is that means you know how to solve problems. That means this new challenge, right? Maybe you think of it as an old challenge or whatever. It's a challenge that you can conquer ultimately, and you can move on. And you know, it's often poetic to sort of see that, in a sense that it it's really it's very simple, yet it's so convoluted at the same time, right? It's to just like let go, to just accept defeat, change perspective, and to sort of relate to other and previous conquered problems before, to sort of ease things out too, right? It's so simple, yet it's so convoluted. It's so emotional, I would say. And I would say I'm a very, I wouldn't say sentimental. Am I sentimental? I don't know, right? I maybe, I don't know. But I think to us, it's a for us, I think, overthinkers, I would say, if you can relate. Uh, it's funny. Sorry, I'm very. It's nighttime, so I'm rambling here, all my eye bags and everything. Chris Williamson, I think, heard this quote, and this is not the exact quote, but an audience to Jordan Peterson once asked him, it's like, uh, is it a curse or a gift to feel everything so deeply? I think, yeah, it's sort of went that way, and it's such an amazing question for us. It's sort of like a double-edged sword. Yeah, when you think about it, it's we overthink stuff, but also when we overthink stuff, a lot of times uh, it saves us from risks, and that's true. That's what the tool is for. Sometimes, again, I get back to that first point of, like, it sometimes hijacks us in terms of our problem solving solution. It often emotionally charged it, makes it haywire. It's I won't say haywire, but it's like it's yeah, it makes this sort of chained circling around the stick again. And to me, I think it's okay to overthink, but it's not okay to just be that sort of somber, sort of um, sort of sadness, to know the fact that you can let go in a way, right? In a certain sense, it very much helped me. It very much helped me. So I hope it helps you also to have that skill to let go of things. I wouldn't say it's a skill too. I think it's a it's more of a realization. It's more of a realization of, okay, I can let go. I can let go of this. It's just a breakup. It's just this. It's just that. You know. Especially when we consider our time, previous our time, when we were childhood and everything. Like, a lot of things happened to us, and we conquered things. And what's this but another thing to conquer? That's the beauty of it to me. It's like, what is this but another thing to conquer and to take lessons from, you know? And that's life. And it builds character. When we learn to accept defeat, when we accept the fact that we have to change perspective, when we accept the fact that we celebrate small wins, the previous conquered problems, we celebrate those small wins. When we do all of that, I think it builds character, right? It makes us wiser, it makes us more patient, it makes us more easygoing, to be honest with you. And ultimately, it makes us a better person. So I think that point still stands, of that we often have to realize, to accept, and to learn to live and let go. If you're feeling alone, if you're feeling sad right now, just know that I'm here, bro. In a sense that I also felt that too. Sometimes I think a lot of people felt that too, right? That feeling of being lonely, right? And I always say to myself, there's always a silver lining. There's always a meaning to this. There's always a flip side of the coin. So I hope that, if you're feeling sad right now, I hope that you're gonna be happy. I hope that, you learn to live and let go. You learn to be, you know, to be better, and to be happy, right? It's not even learning, you're given happiness, right? I hope you are given very much happiness, and the ability to always be happy, to always be wise, to always be patient. I think we all want that. Yeah, it's a beautiful life is beautiful, man. You know, life is beautiful. I love you guys. This is a night ramble, and thank you if you've seen until this 18 minutes of video that's full of buts, full of I thinks, full of pauses. you know, Apologies for that, but yeah, man, live and let go, accept defeat, change perspective, and remember your small and big wins. I think that's a good way to end this video. Alright, see you guys later. Bye bye. I'll always see you later. It's never bye bye, it's always see you later.